Hello and welcome to the IntensiveCareHotline.com podcast. Intensive Care Hotline helps families of critically ill patients in intensive care to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence. In today's podcast, I want to interview one of our clients, Carlos. Hi Carlos, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good, Patrick, thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Carlos, for making time for this interview. I really appreciate it. Carlos, you first contacted me in August last year. At the time of this recording, it's February 2019. You first contacted me in August 2018. And I don't want to do the talking because you have so much to share with our listeners, and I know our listeners will benefit from your story. So Carlos, if you can talk about your mom's situation, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in June 30th of 2018, my mom, she was complaining of stomach pain, and she actually drove herself to the hospital. She was real healthy. Other than she has diabetes. And when she went into the hospital, automatically they said, "Oh, we have to do emergency surgery, and we have to remove your whole gallbladder." And my mom, she was real worried, because she was already kind of breathing not in a solid, 100%. She kind of had a little bit of breathing problems. She was doing treatment, like for asthma, but she didn't have asthma.
Right.
So she was worried about going into surgery, and sure enough, right after surgery, she got placed in with a breathing tube down her throat. Not a tracheotomy, but the one that goes into her mouth.
Yeah, a breathing tube, endotracheal tube. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the hospital where she first went to, they didn't really know how to, deal with her, so they sent her out to another hospital in Paris, California, which she seemed to be recovering, doing pretty good, but they ended up having to put, those trays through her throat.
Right.
And as soon as that happened, she started to recover a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I do remember because I just looked through all of our email exchange, before the interview, and I've seen that, I do remember when you first contacted me, she was, I believe, in ICU at the time or in LTAC, I can't remember, but the short of it is that she was restrained, I believe, and then she probably connected to a ventilator and ended up in a cardiac arrest. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what happened. Now, the doctors were not giving me, true information. One doctor said it was only 3 minutes that he came into the room, and then another doctor said he responded to my mother and that it was more like 11 minutes. And when they brought her back, she was out for I believe now through the history of the records that it was about 8 minutes that she was without oxygen. And she went into cardiac arrest, and when they brought her back, it took a few hours. She started going into having seizures. Her whole body was just like shaky, real bad. Her arms were getting thrown up in the air. I do remember I sent you, it was scary, but I sent you some of the videos so you could see, what my mom was going through.
Yes.
And I remember 2 days later, the neurologist from that hospital called me up. And she said, I have to give you this news. Your mom's not going to make it. She's not going to pull through this.
Mm.
And she was out, like sedated, where that was it. We weren't, going to feed her. She's just, asleep, like coma.
Yeah. But the concerning part, there have been many concerning parts in all of this. But the most concerning part to me was when you first contacted me, and basically you mentioned that your mom was restrained. And because of that, obviously, she was agitated. Because of that, her ventilator became disconnected. She went into a respiratory arrest. She went into a cardiac arrest, and then potentially sustained a brain damage. That to me is, it's gross negligence. How can you restrain a patient and then not watch them? If you restrain someone, then you need to have a nurse next to them at all times.
Yeah. And in that facility, there was about 9 nurses on duty around that time.
Right. And just remind me, Carlos, when this happened, when the cardiac arrest happened, was that in ICU or was that in a long-term acute care facility?
No, that was in the LTAC.
In the LTAC, right.
She had got out of the ICU and was in a regular room. But they had put her in the farthest room available, and she had nobody really watching over her. And when we would go in there to visit her, the neighbor, next door, the next patient next door to her alarm was going off, and we counted, 12 minutes. The people don't respond. They weren't responding to any other patients. Yeah.
No, that is so sad. And I do remember then at the time, you sent me some videos from your mom, and the videos you sent me, she had some seizure, some jerking movements, and that is usually a sign for a hypoxic brain injury, which is what you've been told as well, that your mom sustained a hypoxic brain injury. But a few months have gone by, and maybe can you evaluate on your mom's journey since then?
Yeah. Well, since then she's been into 4 different hospitals, and it's been real hard because I live 100 miles away from where they placed her, and it was getting really hard to go and visit her, and we noticed too when we weren't there, the nurses and stuff, they don't really care, that she would be dirty, and sometimes she would be shaking real bad, and they forgot to give her medications. So when you're there visiting, right away they're running around doing everything to try to impress you. So that's one bad thing that happens. If a lot of these hospitals just did their job correctly, a lot of things, would turn out better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's pretty much what you observed when the incident happened. I mean, if they had done their job properly, they would have noticed your mum becoming disconnected from the ventilator. I mean, again, that's unfortunately, I have no other words, but I believe that's gross negligence.
Right, and even some of the doctors in the beginning, when I had told them that I had contacted you for medical consulting, and I remember you talked to them once or twice.
That's right.
Once they talked to you, Patrick, they were with outsiders. So when they talked to you, they were impressed right away.
Right.
I remember the medications, when I gave you the list of all the medications, and you had me question them on certain ones. That's when she started getting better, especially the last part where you told me about humidified air.
Yes.
That's what brought her back. That hospital she was at, once she came into this new LTAC, remember I was scared of even sending her there.
Right.
And I tried to do all I can to keep her at the other place, but once she got here, she started to improve a lot.
Right.
These people really started doing their job.
Right.
Other than the therapy, they don't help with the therapy, but that's a insurance problem. So that's what I found out. That's why they're not helping her with moving her mobile and stuff like that, because it's insurance. They're trying to say that she's not responding to it, which is not true.
Right. And that's something I do remember we talked about along the way. Whenever somebody needs to come off the ventilator, that mobilization is key. It's absolute key to mobilize.
We started exercising her legs. My wife, my sister, some of my aunts would go visit her and be lifting her legs real high, and we got her a stress ball, and I told her, squeeze it all day. When there's nobody here and you're mad, squeeze this thing. And now she's using her cell phone to text us and send messages. And she wanted to make that video to thanking you, and so I said, okay, well, let me get the camera out, and she knew exactly what to say. Right.
That's amazing. And you mentioned earlier you had one of the doctors tell you your mom wouldn't survive this. What were your thoughts at the time about this? What sort of, what did you do with that message at the time when the doctors told you your mom wouldn't pull through?
When I got that message, I was with my wife, my sister, and my niece, and one of my son was with her grandson, and we were going to go visit her, and she called me and gave me that message, and all I was thinking, like, how can I tell the rest, how can I give that, message with that, their grandma's not going to make it, or my mom. And something inside, that's the day I contacted you, Patrick, when she gave me that news that my mom wasn't going to make it.
Right.
That's the day when I had contacted you.
Right.
Because I said I don't feel that, I don't feel that, she's going to go through all this and die,
Yeah. And that's why it's so important, number one, to, get perspective on a situation like that, but also follow your own gut instinct. I'm sure it's not only that you had other information through our website, but it's also probably your gut feeling was telling you, no, I'm not accepting this, and you weren't giving up. But even after that, I do remember the doctors told you that with the brain injury, she wouldn't recover. Even if she survived, she wouldn't be able to talk, to walk. I mean, now when I saw the video last week, I was gobsmacked.
Yeah, they told me that to recover, she wasn't going to have no memory, and she wouldn't even remember who I was.
And now we need to let the listeners know your mom is talking now.
Oh yeah, she's talking. She still has that little bit of a shaking. That's going to take some time, or it may be lifelong. But I even think once we get her home, we're going to try to do. What I was looking up is even maybe like oxygenating drinks and a therapy for your brain. That type of music that you play over and over, and it just gets your brain working. I did a little bit of that with her, and she likes it.
Right.
So, but I know there's hope for her to actually make a full recovery one day.
Right. How did she start talking again? Was the speech therapy involved? Is that something that you and your family encouraged her to do? How did you get to this? How did you get to that point?
Actually, the new place where we're at, the speech, they put in that, the mirror valve. I forget what it's called.
The speaking valve. The speaking valve.
The speaking valve.
Yeah.
And she was making some like robotic sounds, and she started laughing. She said, "That's not me." And we started laughing. I said, "Mom, anything we hear coming out of your mouth right now sounds beautiful." And she started laughing. I sound like a monster. And next thing you know, it just cleared up. Her lungs started clearing up a little better, and I know that when she has that valve in, she gets dry air into her lungs, so she knows too, like at night, she asks the nurses to take it out, so she can have that humidified air.
Yes. And what about mobilization? Is your mom getting out of bed regularly now?
No, they're not helping her pretty much at all, so it's all my family doing it, and I got to try to talk with the insurance because they're trying to say that my mom doesn't respond to therapy. But I know that's a lie. She walked herself in that hospital, and she told me herself she wants to walk out.
Yeah. That's good to have a goal. It's so good to have a goal. And when the last video that you've shown me, she was off the ventilator just on the trachea mask. Is she having time on the ventilator at all, or is she off the ventilator now completely?
No, she's off the ventilator completely. She's just on an oxygen flow.
That's fantastic. I mean, I can see the improvement. I know you can see. She went basically from cardiac arrest to not waking up. Now she's talking. She's off the ventilator. The next step probably is to get her mobilized.
Yeah. Right.
Another thing that I know our listeners would want to know is you mentioned you've been in 4 hospitals now, and we have helped some clients to change hospitals. But it can be very tedious. I'm sure it can be very tedious changing hospitals. What was your experience with changing hospitals? Was that difficult? What would your advice around that be?
Well, I didn't know how to do it the first time, and I wish I did because I could have got her out before she went into cardiac arrest,
Yeah.
she was begging me to get her out of that hospital. She didn't like it. She didn't like the things that were going on there. The nurses, she said, were real mean. And I didn't know how to do it because nobody, I never learned. You think that you just trust the nurses and doctors to tell you, what to do. But I found out I had to just talk with the main caretaker,
The
social worker.
Social worker, yeah.
Yeah, so once I talked with the social worker, she said, oh, okay, well, you want your mom moved, we advise that you leave her here, but if that's what you want to do, then here's these options. We could have her moved by tonight. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. So that's why we moved her from one place to the other. And it was just, because I just didn't feel safe, her being there no more.
Yeah. And when you moved her, I do remember in the beginning you moved her from one place to another, but that was also the same hospital group. Did you step outside of that hospital group, or?
Yeah, I wanted her to go to another facility, and they didn't want to. They pushed it, and they had a social worker call me. The doctor came all the way from Beverly Hills, in his golfing suit to come and talk to me, to tell me to go to this one. They try to keep my mom in the same circle of the hospital, and because they're worried about lawsuits or something like that. They want to keep her in their care. And sometimes that's not the best thing for for your loved one.
No, not at all. And I do remember in the beginning you had to travel like 100 miles, like you said. I would imagine it was a matter of proximity for you as well. You wanted her as close to your home probably as possible.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's been real hard for my family, and my sister lived with my mom, so I kind of would go pick her up, and then we would travel together. My wife would go. Sometimes my kids would go. But it was costing so much money. I try to do it as long as I can without people realizing, how much we're spending. But I think I must have spent like eight or 9,000 in the last, 4 or 5 months that she's been in that hospital. And that's just fuel cost and my family, eating lightly, like, one lunch, a day.
Yeah. It's very sad when things like that happen, and it's easy. It's very easy to give up, especially with all the obstacles that you're facing. And a lot of families, have to travel, unfortunately, because sometimes those things don't happen at the end of their doorstep, and it is very costly. But nevertheless, the biggest lesson I would imagine is probably not to give up, and continuing to pursue what you want against the odds, because that's basically what your mother was facing. She was facing a recovery against many odds.
Yes.
And she defied those odds, really.
Oh yeah, she did. Some of the doctors, the doctor that told me my mom wasn't gonna make it, the main doctor chose her to come and tell me that my mom was pretty much going to make a full recovery. So she had to change her whole news and come and tell me 3 or 4 weeks later that just from one bad news to good news that my mom was on the way to make a full recovery.
That's so fantastic. That is so fantastic. And at the moment, Carlos, your mom is still in a long-term acute care facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, she's still in there because she still has a trach in her throat, and she still has that shaking. So right now they're trying to wean her off to get the trach completely taken out.
Yeah.
And then we're probably going to have to do therapy at home, to mobilize her and help her exercise. Yeah. If we had her closer to us, we could do it a lot, intense and longer. Yeah. But it's, like I said, it's too far. Now I'm only being able to go once a week.
Right.
And I communicate with my mom a lot on the phone, but she gets real sad, when we're not there.
I can imagine. I mean, from my experience and perspective, the mobilization part is huge, because it sounds to me like your mom has basically been bedbound since July or August.
7 months. 7 months now. Yeah.
And it will be difficult for her to start walking again. It's not going to be impossible, but the longer they don't mobilize, the more difficult it gets.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, my mom, she's doing her own exercise.
right.
She doesn't wait for the therapy to come in. She's lifting her legs, 3 or 4 inches off of the bed, one at a time. She turns her body. She lifts her arms up, real high in the sky till she gets tired.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, she has the stress ball. She's squeezing it. So she's doing her own therapy, and she's determined to walk out of that place and prove everybody they're wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, like the mobilization part needs to be next. And you are saying that it's an insurance issue, that the insurance is not paying for that part. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're just coming in and asking her, to lift her hand 3 times and lift the other arm, 2 or 3 times, and then they walk out.
Mm-hmm.
And I called the social worker, and she said, well, basically it's, the insurance. They're not paying for full therapy, which I don't understand why they wouldn't. My mom walked herself into the hospital.
Exactly.
We didn't bring her in a wheelchair.
That's right. One thing you can look at, Carlos, is your mum must have a care plan, right? So the doctors and the nurses must document a care plan. I can't imagine that mobilization would not be part of that care plan. Walking is like, it's like an activity of daily living that, needs to be part of that. What you could do is you could ask for the care plan, and once you see the documentation of goals of care, one of the goals of care would be mobilization. You could go back to the insurance and you could say, hey, this is part of the goals of care. It needs to be funded. It's also like, imagine your mum can go home walking. It would also save costs for the insurance down the line. If she can't walk, she may need home care.
Yeah.
So it's probably making the argument along those lines in terms of long-term outcomes.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do remember from last year and from the conversations we've had, I believe your mum is about 56 or 57 years of age. Is that correct?
She's 60. She turned 62, and she had her birthday there in the hospital.
Oh, okay. That's great. And I mean, that's not, it's very young. People live until 80. It's very young, and not that age should ever be a determining factor, I believe, whether you should continue treating someone or not. But it just shows anything is possible.
Right, exactly.
So, Carlos, was there anything else that you would like to add? Was there anything that you think was important as well that we haven't talked about?
Well, I feel that I got a lot of the confidence talking to the doctors and stuff, with your help. So a lot of other people that are interested or looking at your website, they should know that it's not about money or anything. It's just getting the correct help. And you're not going to get it from the hospital because they're on their own side. They're for themselves, and a lot of times they know what to do, but they're not going to do certain things unless you ask or you know about it. Yeah. And I'm glad that I did, move forward and became your client. It was just wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you for those kind words, and I can only emphasize, the biggest challenge for families in intensive care is simply that they don't know what they don't know. That's the biggest challenge. And once you have a clinical person on your side that can talk to the doctors and negotiate with the doctors, it's a game changer, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. But look, Carlos, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share this with our listeners.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again for taking time out of your day. This is the intensivecare.hotline.com podcast. I want to thank Carlos once again, and go and check out our case studies at intensivecare.hotline.com, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting and advocacy if you have a loved one in intensive care. Thanks again, Carlos, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.